Sean McCracken here with Hubert Viriot, CEO of Yotel. Now, Hubert, here in the U.S., you guys seem to have quite a bit of projects over here, quite a bit of properties. So just walk us through what's the trajectory for Yotel in the U.S. What projects are you most excited about? Where do things stand?
Sure. Well, thanks, Sean. Our first hotel was in New York, right? Yotel New York opened just over 7 years ago. It was the beginning of our whole company, insofar as managing city hotels. Until then, we only had airport hotels in the UK, and we launched Yotel New York, as I said, 7 years ago with 713 rooms. So it was a big statement, and the reason we've done that is that we immediately identified the US as one of the key market for our future growth. So that's where we had to establish our flagship property for our global flagship property. So since then, things have moved on a little bit. We now have 11 projects in the US, 4 are in operation. We have a hotel operating in San Francisco, which opened last year. We have a hotel operating in Boston and the Seaport, 326 rooms, which opened 2 years ago. And in the middle of last year, we took over an existing hotel in Washington, D.C., the Liaison Hotel, which we're about to convert into a Yotel this year. And then we have projects in various parts of the world. In various parts of the world, but also obviously the US with upcoming hotels in Miami, a second hotel coming up in New York. We have a hotel coming up in Atlanta. We've done a joint venture with Replay to develop our long stay brand Yotel Pad in the mountains. We have a project coming up in Park City and one in Mammoth Mountain, and many more also coming up. So the US is a very important market for us. Obviously a very deep tourism market. Our brand is well recognized thanks to our flagship property in New York. It's a very sophisticated market where the micro hotel industry is well understood and well accepted by consumer and investors alike. So it remains a key focus for us. And today we have 34 projects around the world, and as I said, about a third of our projects are in the US, and that represents quite clearly where we want to be.
Let me ask you specifically about the DC property, Liaison, because it seems like very unique for you guys. Coming on as, for at least a period, almost like a third-party manager, and then turning that into a conversion. Is that a new pathway to growth for you, or is that just kind of a one-off, unique circumstance?
No, it's an amazing project, and it is a case study for us. It's the first time we do a conversion of an existing hotel. We had done some adaptive reuse. The San Francisco hotel was an office building which converted into a Yotel. And in the UK, we have a couple of projects which are also adaptive reuse. But it's the first time globally that we actually take an existing hotel and convert it into a Yotel. And it's not a coincidence or a one-off or pure luck or whatever we can call it. It's planned. We always wanted to demonstrate that Yotel could take over existing hotels, so which I think is very important for investment community. It's complicated, obviously, because our rooms are quite unique, right? We're all about efficiency. We're all about design. Rooms are typically smaller than your traditional hotels, but and therefore it required a lot of work. But also that's how we're adding so much value to these hotels. So the Liaison Hotel is a building which was built in 1968, so it's over 50 years. It required, in any event, quite a significant refurb to be brought back to its original glory. And thanks to our concept, we will be able to increase the room count by up to 20%. So it's quite significant, and that's also kind of the game changer for the investors, which I see a 330 room hotel being close to 400 rooms, right? So it's very attractive for them, and for us as a brand, it's a huge exercise. So to do that, and it's working out exceptionally well. We work very closely with the investors, with Metrovest and so forth, and you'll see more of that, right? Yes, the bulk of our hotels are greenfield. We do some, as I said, adaptive reuse, and as and when required, and when the opportunity arises, we'll continue doing some more conversions.
So, in the time that you've been operating in the U.S., from the open of the New York project to today, have you seen kind of a greater level of acceptance in the investment community to the concept that you guys bring? Because at that point, I'm sure it was much more shocking.
Well, our first hotel, Yotel New York, is owned by our major shareholder, right, directly. So, and it was fundamental because at the time, what we were doing, what Yotel stands for, was completely unknown, right? I mean, you had 2 or 3 other hotels in the U.S. which could be somewhat comparable, and the developer of the project related, who's done a phenomenal job delivering this hotel for us, was themselves very surprised about the standards we required and why we didn't need receptions, why we had so many rooms. They had anticipated that building would have about 300 keys, and we put 700 in there. So they were obviously quite surprised. But we were the client, and our shareholders were backing us up, and they've done it. And so, needless to say, at the time, people were surprised by the locations. Where you go to Hell's Kitchen, it's like at the time it was not completely obvious that this was the district which was going to become what it is today, and both the fact that we were like a new type of product going into a soon-to-be gentrified kind of location is very representative of what we want to do and what we are today. And of course, today it's much easier. Firstly, our hotel in New York is doing phenomenally well, has run at like a 93% occupancy since nearly day one. So it's been very well received by the consumers, by the guests. And then we've started to grow our brand, as I explained. We're having some other hotels coming up in the pipeline, and then generally speaking, what we do is increasingly becoming a segment across the world, right? We have competitors nowadays or alternative users, which I think is great. No, I don't see it at all as a threat. Quite the contrary, it makes our life much easier to be able to say, look, we are part of this segment, and for both the consumer and the investment community, it's much easier to understand what we do. And therefore today we don't really have to explain the why of Yotel. I mean, I think people know. We just need to demonstrate that we're the better brand. So it's completely different than 7 years ago.
I imagine that you'd strongly believe that you are the better brand too.
Well, to be honest, I have a huge amount of respect for other players in this segment. We all have our pros and cons, I suppose. One of the uniqueness about our brand is we're completely independent. We have a global footprint, right? Aside from the US, we have projects in Australia, in Japan, in Europe, in Dubai. And that's in line with our strategy to occupy a footprint in all the key cities around the world, right? So instead of trying to have, like, say, 300 hotels in the US under a franchise agreement and just rolling it out, we thought, no, let's just occupy, let's be in the key cities, let's establish the brand, let's manage the hotels on our own, so we can demonstrate all our capabilities and what the hotel is supposed to be, not just as like a real estate product, but as an experience for the customer. And as we establish this initial set of flagship hotels around the world, then and only then can we start looking, okay, now let's roll out, right? And let's do more. Let's enter secondary cities. Let's do a second or third or fourth hotel in New York, etc. So, but at this stage, our focus is key cities around the world under management contract, and that's what we're doing, and that's quite unique to a certain extent.